Good evening and welcome to the City of Woodstock's virtual public planning meeting. Tonight's meeting is an open public meeting as required by the Planning Act. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording of this meeting will be posted on the city's website following this meeting for Monday, August the 9th, 2021. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page on the city's website under Inside City Hall heading on the cityofwoodstock.ca homepage. Present here tonight are members of City Council, the Deputy City Clerk Alicia Dijak, City Engineer Building Official Craig Wallace, Oxford County Senior Planner Andrea Hackler, and we do have somebody from IT on board too, just in case we are interrupted for some reason for technical purposes. This public planning meeting is for information and discussion purposes only, and no decisions will be made at this evening's meeting. Council will make a decision on these matters at the regular council meeting, which will be held on Thursday, August the 12th at 1:30 in the afternoon via Zoom. If you wish to address council at that meeting as well, you must submit a delegation form to the city clerk no later than 2 p.m. tomorrow, that being Tuesday. The delegation form is available on the city website or contact the city clerk's office. Due to the nature of a virtual meeting, the public has been asked to submit a request to speak in advance to allow for a pre-meeting tests with the IT department. Those wishing to make a presentation will join the meeting via Zoom, while those wishing to provide comments or answer questions only will call into the meeting via telephone. We actually also have 3 comments tonight that will be read into the record by our Deputy City Clerk, Alicia Dijak. When recognized by the chair to speak, you must provide your name and address for the public record before giving comments. Only the applicant or people who provide oral or written comments regarding the application are entitled to appeal council's decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. Please keep your comments to planning matters only and try to avoid repeating comments that have already been expressed. If you have not provided oral or written comments but wish to receive a formal notice of council's decision on this matter, please contact the clerk's department. The notice will provide further information on appealing the decision. The county's planner will be asked to present the planning report for each application. There's 3 on tonight's agenda. City council members may ask the planner questions then. The applicant or representatives of the applicant will then be provided an opportunity to make their comments, followed by those wishing to speak in favor of the application, and then those followed who would like to speak in opposition of the application. Prior to proceeding with the first application, does anyone here wish to declare a pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest on any items that are on tonight's agenda? Questions specifically for council members. Seeing none, let's move forward to the agenda. Item number 1 is B21. B21-35-8, A21-08-8, and B21-36-8, A21-09-8. We'll explain why there's 4 different numbers. It's an application for consent and minor variance. The address is 815 Ann Street, and the applicant is Oxford Builders, Inc. So we welcome in our Oxford County Senior Planner, Andrea Hackler, to give her presentation on this address, 815 Ann Street.
Thank you. So this first application is for 2 severances and 2 minor, two minor variances. And as Councillor Schattenberg indicated, it's for lands located at 815 Ann Street. And I'll just share my screen here. So as you can see, the application is proposing to create 2 residential building lots and retain a single building lot. The applicant is proposing to create the 2 parcels and retain the parcel to build single detached dwellings. Currently on the subject lands is an existing single detached dwelling and a detached garage, which if these applications are approved, the applicant will remove both of those structures. The application also proposes to reduce the minimum lot frontage for both lots to be severed and the lots to be retained. So the lot to be severed by B21-35-8, so this we call a rear yard infill or a backyard infill. This lot, the applicant is proposing to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 12 meters to 6 meters. And that's basically so that they can provide frontage, legal frontage and access to Ian Street for the subject property. And then it opens up to allow for a building parcel in the rear of the subject property. The application also is proposing relief for both the lot to be retained and the lot to be severed by B21-36-8. And the applicant's proposing to reduce those lot frontages each by 12 meters to 9 meters. And that would facilitate a single detached dwelling on each parcel. The surrounding land uses include a mix of single detached and semi-detached dwellings with a range of highway commercial type uses to the southwest. So the subject lands are designated low density residential. This is a form of residential intensification as well as can be considered infill. The single detached dwellings that are being proposed for the lots are uses that are or a use that is contemplated by the low density residential designation. The lands are zoned R1. And so as I indicated, relief is required for lot frontage. But aside from that, the parcels are adequately sized to accommodate single detached dwellings as well as meet all of the requirements of the R1 zoning with respect to setbacks, lot coverage, area, etc. So the application was circulated to a number of agencies. The building department indicated that they are in support of the application. The single detached dwellings have reduced lot frontages. However, the parcels are adequately sized and they have more depths than are generally required in the R1 zone. And so that makes up for the reduced frontage in the eyes of the building department. The city engineering department indicated that there's sanitary sewer and water available at Ann Street and each lot should be serviced separately. And the city fire department indicated that they would require a residential sprinkler system for the parcel located at, or for the dwelling located in the rear yards. And so we have put that in through a condition of the severance, and it'll be addressed through the severance agreement. Further to that, the Parks Department indicated that there's a number of large trees, which they would like to see the applicant make every effort to maintain those trees. And then any trees that would be removed, compensation would be required. So staff have reviewed the application as previously indicated. Oh, sorry, I did miss one part. With respect to the public consultation, at the time of writing the report, we had not received any sort of correspondence from any neighboring property owners. That being said, since the writing of the report, we have received a number of letters from neighboring property owners. The letters are objections to the subject applications, and they generally relate to issues such as privacy, property values being affected, and the trees that are located on the site. I believe that some of the letters will be read too, and also those that are not read have been attached for council's consideration. That being said, staff have reviewed the application and we are supportive of the subject applications. We feel that as I indicated earlier, that this is a form of infill and intensification. We feel that the lots are adequately sized to accommodate single detached dwellings as proposed and meet the relevant setbacks, provide parking, there's adequate space for drainage, grading, and the sites, each parcel can be adequately serviced. We feel that the parcel in the back, the rear yard parcel, which is the one that the neighbors were generally concerned with, we do feel that there's adequate space remaining. It's quite a large lot. It is, it's over 1,200 square meters in size. And so we do feel that there's adequate space to allow for the required setbacks, as well as any sort of buffering with respect to fencing or landscaping. Further to that, we are satisfied with the reduced lot frontages. We feel that they will not impact the ability of the sites to provide the required items relating to a development, so parking and setbacks and landscaping. And so in light of that, we would recommend that these applications be approved, and we have included a number of conditions for council's consideration. And sorry, my lights turned off. Further to that, if council has concerns with the proposal after hearing after considering the concerns from the neighboring property owners, one recommendation that planning staff have would put out to council potentially is including a condition that requires the rear yard infill lot to go through a site plan if it's approved. Require that there's an adequate rear yard setback. At this point, the building envelope can easily provide a 7.5 meter setback, which meets the minimum requirement. But we could potentially speak with the the builder through the site plan process and potentially adjust that and make sure that there's fencing and potentially additional landscaping to provide more of a buffer from the properties on Maple Ave and this rear yard parcel. So that is one option. And if council is interested in that, I can draft up a condition for the Thursday night meeting.
At this point in time, I'll ask if there's any questions from any members of council, concerns or clarifications they may want from Andrea Hackler's report on our first item on the agenda, 815 Ann Street in Woodstock. Go ahead, Councillor Lauder.
Yes, I want to thank Andrea I had some questions, especially the location of the structure that would be in that back lot, because I did drive by there and it looks like they're jamming 3 houses into this small space. But when you're talking about that we can ask for site plan requirements there, I would be all in favor of that condition being put into place for this application for that back lot. So that was one of my concerns, and because the homes on Maple Street are all back onto that. They're nicely, the gardens and everything look really lovely and everything looks so neat. So I just wanted to make that comment that I certainly would like to see that site plan requirement put on that lot, the back lot. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Petter.
Thanks, Mark. The same sort of thing that Connie was talking about. Andrea, how close can they build that house to the backyards of the people on Maple Ave? And Mark, I don't know whether you can do this or not, but I wouldn't mind hearing from Mr. Geerlinks, because I know he's there, where he thinks he's going to build and how close it's going to be to those Maple Ave backyards.
Yeah, we'll bring Mr. Geerlinks in from Oxford Builders in a minute. Just wanted to see if there's any questions for Andrea Hackler, first of all, from the county planning office. Did you have any other questions, Todd, before we go to, I guess, Councillor Accioni as a comment or a question?
Yeah, just.
Or go ahead, Todd.
What is the distance? How close can he get to the backyard?
So through Councillor Schattenberg to Councillor Petter's question. So currently the zoning bylaw under the R1 zoning requires a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters. So just as a kind of like a benchmark, just to give you a general understanding, at this point in time though, if the house were removed at Ann Street, the existing house, the applicant could apply for a permit and build a house that's 7.5 meters from that those Maple Ave rear lot lines. So that's permitted as of today. That being said, that's why I recommended that, I mean, or one option is that we could ask that it go through site plan, and then we could potentially work with the applicant to increase that setback, perhaps make sure there's a wood fence, and then we could also have a few trees planted along that rear lot line, and so that it would act as a screen too. The other thing to remember too is as of today, the applicant or the current owner of the property could apply to build an accessory structure, and it would need to be a minimum of 1.2 meters from that rear lot line.
Anything else, Councillor Petter? Councillor Accioni, therefore, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess I just wanted to stress to Ms. Hatchler that I'd like to see a site condition as well for that location, if you don't mind being one of the requirements, especially in light of the correspondence we've got from the neighbors. My biggest concerns, of course, are trees. Trees are a big concern. Driving by that, there does look to be at least 2 that might be affected. Correct me if I'm wrong. As well as the normal snow removal and the water runoff, which you did address through your presentation, of course, saying you think it's going to be fine. That's fine. But how about a privacy fence? Is there any kind of requirements we can put for the neighbor's sake of that being a condition? And maybe Mr. Geerlings might approve that right away anyways, but is there any way to make that as a requirement in a case like this where it is such an older established neighborhood and try to keep it a little more private for the neighborhood?
So through Councillor Schattenberg to Councillor Accioni, I believe in speaking to the applicant, there is a board fence there right now. However, that's something that we could address through the site plan process as well, to make sure that there is a board fence and it's continuous across. I believe there would be two parcels, 822 and 826 Maple Ave, back right onto the property, so we can make sure that it's continuous across those 2 properties for sure.
Yeah, well, I certainly know the province is pushing this infilling, and I know they, even if, yeah, anyway, I know they're pushing it. So if we can find a way that the neighborhoods, if it does get approved, that the neighborhood at least is less affected, the better. So thank you.
Connie Lauder, follow-up question, go ahead.
Yes, through the chair to Andrea. I just want to make sure on the parking, is there sufficient parking that they don't have to park on the street? Because I think that's a big issue that we're having throughout the city now. They have these smaller garages that you can't get an SUV in or a small truck. So people are having to park out on the streets and making them streets looking like parking lots. So is there sufficient parking for these properties?
Councillor Schattenberg to Councillor Lauder. Each of the parcels that are being proposed are more than, so the minimum lot depth is 28 meters in the R1 zone, and each parcel they're proposing a greater depth than the 28 meters in that minimum. And so with a 28 meter lot depth, staff are satisfied that there's enough room for a building envelope, as well as maintaining a 6 meter front yard setback, which would accommodate the required parking spaces. At this point in time, they haven't applied for a building permit, obviously, because they haven't created the parcels. But when they apply for a building permit, the building department would ensure that the house is set back the 6 meters and that the 2 parking spaces are being provided on each parcel. And so in this case, we're satisfied that there is the space for that, but we haven't seen the permit. But I mean, obviously they'd have to come back for relief if they were reducing the parking, and that's not generally something that staff would recommend to a builder to go for reduced parking.
I guess maybe just a couple of comments from me, Andrea. First of all, we don't often talk about precedences because this isn't a court of law by any stretch of the imagination. But on Maud Street, there was a backfill at 46 Maud just around the corner, and the existing house at 44 Maud stayed there. Then they built another house behind it and called it 46 Maud, and that lot almost backs right onto this property. So it's certainly there's been some precedent already in the neighborhood because these are excessively deep lots. I mean, I grew up on Oxford Street myself, where all the lots were about 200 feet deep. This is even deeper. This is 270, 260 feet deep property. So it's got an advantage that way. I don't know if there's any kind of a comment you can make from that, but my question though is at 821 Ann Street, which is the very next lot to the east. That house seems to be set back a little bit further than the other house to the west. These houses that would be built, they could not be built in front of 821, could they? Like, you know what I mean? 2 or 3 feet in front of the overall frontage of 821 Ann Street. That would be my concern if 821 Ann Street loses some of its so-called view or frontage view if 2 other brand new houses are kind of built to the west.
Through to your question, Councillor Schadenberg, I'll actually defer that question. That's an established building line question. So I'll actually defer it to Mr. Wallace and he can respond to that.
Thank you, Andrea. Through to Councillor Schadenberg. So this is called an established neighborhood. So the zoning bylaw has a clause that's called the established building line. So which allows the development to maintain the existing front yard setbacks of the neighborhood. So depending on what that established building line is, basically the new houses have to stay in line with the houses on each side of the development. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, it certainly does. Any other questions or comments for, I guess, either Craig Wallace at this point or from the County of Oxford, Andrea Hackler, the planner? It doesn't appear to be so. So at this point in time, we can welcome in the developer or the applicant in this case, and that's George Geerlinks from Oxford Builders, to make any comments he'd like to make to either back up what Andrea Hackler's already said or to maybe answer any questions or concerns that were earlier addressed by council members. Go ahead, Mr. Geerlinks.
How are you tonight? Okay, so just a few comments that have come up. If you have been by the property, the existing house is in very bad shape. So one way or another, something is going to be built, whether it's 2 or 3. We have already met with Rita on site regarding the trees and which ones we could save and which ones couldn't be. The houses that we will be building on there, if anything, will probably increase values of neighboring properties because we're not building small homes. Like they're going to be fair size 2-story, 4-bedroom homes probably. The lot in the rear, if you look at the dimensions of that rear lot, is probably bigger than any of the lots on Maple. So I'm like, as far as the lot size, it's huge. We're trying to promote infill building here, and that's an opportunity we had when the property came for sale, and that's what we're pursuing. All right.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Geerlinks, for your comments. Now we do ask questions from council if they would like to ask you questions. Go ahead first, Councillor Petter. You were the first with your camera on.
Mr. Geerlinks, how are you doing, buddy?
Not bad. How are you?
Good. I agree with everything you just said after going and looking at all those properties. And obviously, you know, our concern is directly from Maple Ave, those backyards from Maple Ave. Do you have any idea how close you're going to build to their backyard and what you can do to kind of alleviate some of those concerns that are coming from Maple Ave? I agree with you on the houses. The houses look pretty rough that you're going to be taking down. Yeah. And I agree, it's probably going to look better in the end. But we're really concerned about the Maple Ave backyards.
So the house that's designed to go on the rear lot is a 2-story, and the bedrooms are at the back. So we're actually going to put the deck and everything is at the front of the house. So there will be no deck or anything. There's not even a patio door at the rear. That's, and I mean, right now we're at the 7.55. We would consider moving it ahead, maybe a couple more meters or forward, so there's a little more rear yard. Just gives a little better turn when it's set back a little further from the rear property of the 2 lots we're going to create. But we could move it forward to probably about 9 meters, 9.5 meters.
Okay, that's
the back of the house is better, so there's not going to be any even doors or anything at the back there.
Okay.
All right.
All right, great, thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor Accioni.
Thanks, Mark. And thanks, George, for being here. As far as privacy fencing and everything else, I couldn't really tell what was there now. Is there, according to Andrea, there might be some fencing now? What is the plan for any type of privacy fencing or trees?
Honestly, like I say, we've been talking to Rita. We haven't done a tree plan yet. I'm sure that's what they're going to ask for. Because we do have to take a few trees out. So we have to replace 3 to 1, I do believe.
Yeah, I believe it's 3 to 1.
We could put along that whole back property there.
Especially if
as far as the fence, I'm not sure what kind of shape it's in, to be honest with you. I haven't looked that close at it. But I'm sure we can put a new fence up there. I know the left side, there's a new fence going up, and on the right, there is already a fairly new fence up there.
Yeah, again, I'm really not sure. I'm just thinking of your neighbors.
But yeah, we would have no problem putting a fence up there, like a privacy fence.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
For anyone watching, Rita Haran is the park supervisor for the city of Woodstock that Mr. Geerlings is referring to, that would be talking about the arborist and trees in the backyard there that would have to do a count on or condition look at the trees anyway that's currently on the lot there on Ann Street. Any other comments or questions from members of council at this point in time? I guess my question to Mr. Geerlings would be the garages, therefore, would they still technically have Ann Street frontage, or are you building the garages to the side of the house on the west side? Because you say that there's going to be a porch on the Ann Street frontage.
Which
are the house in the green lot, the one at the back?
It's actually garages underneath that. So it's like a cantilevered deck, like a roof kind of over top of the front area of the garage, which would be used as a deck.
Okay, that clarifies that. Any other questions from Mr. Geerlings? George, we certainly invite you to stay on, because there are certainly comments from people who are as we say, against the proposal from the neighborhood, as you know. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Deputy City Clerk Alicia Dijak on board. She has 3 letters from neighborhood people that would want their letters read into the minutes for tonight's meeting. So, and then we'll have 3 other members of different delegations that have comments to make as well. So at this point, I'd want to invite Alicia Dijak, the City Deputy Clerk, who's also the clerk for this meeting, to read into the minutes these 3 letters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you have said, I do have 3 pieces of correspondence here. I do understand that city councilors do have copies of these. However, they have them requested to be read into the minutes. The first one is an email from a Patricia Robertson, and it's as follows. My name is Patricia Robertson, and I live at 826 Maple Avenue, directly north of the property to be severed at 815 Ann Street. My property will be severely impacted by this severance due to the fact that this is literally in my backyard. My yard currently is an oasis of serenity with many plants and flowers and a pond overlooking a green space. This green space has many established trees, which I assume will be cut down. This is the property to be severed, specifically B2135-8. Obviously, it appears that my privacy will be coming to an end because someone has decided that it's okay to build in the middle of two streets and sever property for the benefit of builders, regardless of what people living in the surrounding established neighborhoods think. Where does this end? Should other properties on Ann Street be sold in the future, will they be demolished and severed as well? A subdivision between two streets. Not exactly my idea of improving the landscape and beautifying the city. Are we that desperate for land in this city that we need to allow houses to be built and stuffed anywhere in these old neighborhoods, imposing the rights of others who have enjoyed their quiet neighborhoods? No one would enjoy having a 2 or 3 story house built in their backyard overlooking their property. There is no information on what is being built on the property to be severed, specifically B21-35-8, other than a dwelling is going to be built. Once the property is allowed to be severed, I assume they can do whatever they want. Where are my rights? I pay taxes. They won't be reduced, but the value of my property certainly will. I respectfully request that if this application goes through, that you consider the rights of others and provide us with more information before you allow this construction to resume. Thank you. Second piece of correspondence is from a Kim Luckhart. My name is Kim Luckhart. I live at 830 Maple Ave, just northwest of the proposed property. I have concerns about the 2 houses proposed to be built. I chose this area because it is quiet. My backyard is directly in view of the proposed property. My concerns are that the houses will be built close to the rear of the property. This will allow the privacy of my backyard to be in view. My backyard is my relaxation area. My neighbor and I have taken steps to improve the value of our lots. How is this new development going to impact my property value? I believe there has to be another solution to the housing problem other than impacting already established neighborhoods. There are a lot of trees on that property, which I assume will need to be removed. This will have a negative impact on the surrounding properties as well as the environment. There will be a lot of noise with all the construction. It will probably go on for months. In my neighborhood, we have a lot of retired people, including myself. The impact of the noise and lack of privacy will be harmful to many of us. I pay my property taxes based on my lot and the surrounding neighborhood properties. I do not want my taxes to increase because of the added houses. If this application is granted, I fear it will open the door to sever any other large lots in the area. This is not agreeable to me. I do not believe it is right to impact so many other properties for the sake of another person's profit. I take pride in my property and keep it well maintained. Will the same be said about the proposed lots? I have many other reasons for not wanting this to happen. I am therefore saying no to the proposed severing and construction at the above address. I thank you for your time in considering my reasons. The final piece of correspondence is from Sandra and Ian Moore and family. To whom it may concern, our names are Sandra and Ian Moore. Our family lives at 818 Maple Avenue, slightly northwest of the property to be severed at 815 Ann Street, and approval of this application will infringe upon our Bill of Rights and the rights of our neighbors, the rights of an individual to life, liberty, and security of the person and enjoyment of property. Our property will be severely affected by the severance of 815 Ann Street. We are specifically opposed to the proposed lot of B21-35-8. We love our property and our neighborhood. Building a home on this lot will not make for good neighbors. We do not want this property built there, and if it is, how will the new homeowners feel knowing that everyone in the new neighborhood protested their living there? This is an older neighborhood in Woodstock and many mature trees growing along the property lines of Ann Street and Maple Ave. The loss of any mature trees is a huge loss for the environment. These trees benefit our specific area in many ways. Apple Street in Ann Street and Maple Ave are very close to a noisy and busy street, Norwich Avenue. These trees provide a natural barrier to that noise and helps to visually hide the traffic. These trees are home to lots of wildlife. Our family enjoys seeing many species of birds that call these trees home, as well as playful squirrels. Sadly, this wildlife will once again be forced to move on. The trees provide an enormous amount of privacy between the lots on Ann Street and Maple Ave, and we are assuming the city will not be willing to cover the costs of planting similar sized trees on our own property or letting us install fences high enough to recreate that sense of privacy. When we had to put a new roof on our garage, we were not even allowed to install an eaves trough on the side of the garage that faced the neighbor's property, but an entire house is perfectly acceptable. The owner of 815 Ann Street has a moral responsibility to the property in accordance with Bill 190, an act amending the Expropriations Act and the Human Rights Code to enhance the protection that Ontario law gives to owners of the property. Specifically, Bill 190 9-2, in addition to whatever duties are specified by law, Every person has the moral responsibility to ensure that his or her real property is maintained to a presentable standard in keeping with such factors as the legal uses to which the property is put and the character of the community in which the property is located. Having 3 homes on that property will detrimentally change the character of our community. Having a house built directly behind our home will directly affect our property value. Will the city be reducing our property taxes to address that issue? We think not. Even if the city provided some sort of tax relief for causing damage to our property value, it would not be enough to cover the loss of enjoyment of our property. Bill 191 brackets 1, every person has a right to own the real and personal property that he or she has acquired in accordance with the law, except to the extent provided by the law to the peaceful enjoyment and free disposition of the property. When is the city going to protect the charm of Woodstock? Clear-cutting properties to cram as many homes onto one lot is shameful. We know that there is an overwhelming need for affordable housing in this city. Is this lot going to provide that? If not, then the city of Woodstock and the builder agreed. If not, then it is just City of Woodstock and builder greed trying to squeeze every last cent out of a plot of land with no regard for the existing taxpayers that will be affected. Perhaps the City of Woodstock should refocus their energies on working with the builders to contribute to finding a solution to the problem of affordable housing instead of allowing them to seemingly run rampant throughout the city. Thank you for considering our many objections to the approval of this application.
Thanks to our Deputy City Clerk, Alicia Dijak, for adding those comments or correspondence to our minutes here tonight, to the agenda. I guess, Mr. Geerlings, we could ask you to comment on them, but we do have 3 other delegations here that would like to speak against the proposal. We'll introduce them one at a time. And when I do introduce you, try not to repeat stuff that's already been said by other people, whether it was something in the correspondence or something that'll be said live by one of the people that'll be coming on through Zoom here tonight. The first delegation, give us your address, your home address, as was noted in the letters that we had. Please give us your home address and then your comments that you'd like to make. We'll start with Delegate Ryan Black.
Yeah, hello, I'm Ryan Black, 822 Maple Avenue.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Black. Any comments you'd like to make?
Well, you said don't repeat, but I feel that I have to repeat what was said because they pretty much nailed everything. Privacy, I'm the one that's between Mr. Moore and Pat. And the builder was saying something about a fence is there right now. There's a small, I think a 6-foot fence. He was saying something about putting on a privacy fence or some shrubs. And you know what, that's not good enough. And like Pat and Ian said, why do those houses have to be built there? We don't even know what size of the house is going to be in the backyard. And it's an older neighborhood. And like Ian said, the trees there, mature trees, it's serene, it's quiet. Now we're going to have months and months of construction and a 2-story huge house, you know, in my backyard. The backyard is quiet. Now it's not going to be, whether there's going to be a privacy fence or shrubs. So, yeah, I'm just here to voice my opinion and hope that it's not granted.
All right, thanks a lot, Mr. Black. And next on the list is Amy Roberts. If you give us your, I guess even your spelling of your name, it looks like it's an interesting spelling name, and your address as well, Amy.
Hello, I am Amy Roberts and I live at 813 Ann Street. I'm to the west of the property being spoken about. I'm obviously here to speak in objection to everything kind of being spoken about and echoing many of the people who have written in from Maple Street. You know, we don't feel that the severance and construction of these lots kind of respect and reinforce the characteristics of this neighborhood. I've only lived here for 3 years myself, and the only reason that me and my partner bought here was because we're kind of getting a slice of the country here in the city, and there's not many areas in town that offer that or accommodate that. And we're kind of very disappointed to hear about the infilling, you know, and now having heard that the plan for that rear house with the deck on the front, that's going to be looking directly into our backyard now. We're in the middle of constructing a privacy fence, but unless I want that fence to be 10 feet tall, we're not going to be getting as much privacy as we like. And then in regards to the trees that are being taken down, I'm curious to know what the certifications of the people that are coming in and looking at these trees are, because there's 10 trees that are going to be coming down, very large, mature trees. And to only replace 3 of them is kind of sad, in my opinion. These trees, like everybody has said, are providing privacy, especially to that infilled house on Maud Street. You say that's setting a precedence, but I can see that house from my backyard and I don't like looking at it. I can see right onto their deck. I can see what they're cooking for supper, basically. I see their laundry, and now I'm going to have that right beside me. So, I just would really like to know what considerations this committee has taken into as to how this would affect the neighborhood, or if they've just looked at the dollars and cents. So that's kind of all I have towards the matter, I suppose.
We thank Amy Roberts for her comments. And finally on the list, the last delegate, OJ Johnson, if you can give us your address, OJ, as well, and then give us your comments that you'd like to make.
Hi, I'm OJ Johnson, 804 Ann Street, and I'm against this too. I wrote something. Good evening, councilors, chairman, and guests. I'd like to thank you for being here and allowing me to speak. I live on Ann Street for 14 years this month, and the trees, everybody's been just calling them trees. Well, I have 2 old growth trees on my property. My neighbor's property is from 1850. So that tree is close to 200 years old that's in front of my house. I have another one in my backyard close to the same. So when they're saying, oh, they're just mature trees, these trees are over 100 years old. And the proposed driveway for the green lot would take out 6 old growth trees right in a row, right down the middle of the property. When the councilors drove by and looked, they noticed right down the middle, there's a nice row of trees. You can see it from Google Earth and everywhere you look like around there. They are correct. The house is one of the worst looking houses in Woodstock. I'll give it that. And it would be nice if it was torn down. But the privacy of the neighborhood, the infrastructure in our neighborhood is flawless. Our street does not have a pothole in it. It doesn't have cracks in it. And now it's going to be ripped up all just so that we can have an infill property here. And the city's going to end up having to pay for that in the future, because now it's not a perfect road. This road's been in place for over 30 years and it's not a place for it. The privacy for the neighbors on the surrounding area, I can see the house down the street, but it doesn't affect me privacy wise, but I could never see something being built in my backyard like that. That is just rude and cruel. Corporate greed just coming out in this kind of market and taking advantage of everybody, throwing astronomical numbers at any property just to take advantage of every person that is trying to buy a house in this market, no matter where they're coming from, whether they're in Woodstock, Oxford County, or anywhere in the province. And I just don't think that it's right that we tear down these trees that are could be hundreds of years old, over 100 for sure, just to facilitate building some 4 or 2-story, 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom mansions in this 1960s neighborhood, with having frontages now on your property of 20 feet, 30 feet, and 35 feet, where the frontage currently is 75 feet. And that is a comfortable property size for this neighborhood. I would recommend them tearing this property down and building 1 single residence with a nice garage, a nice property. Don't disturb any trees. It would be the most beautiful house in Woodstock, but there's absolutely no need to divide this property into 3 parcels just for corporate greed and Woodstock City greed, because Woodstock City is going to have to fix the infrastructure in the coming years, in a decade, because this road's going to be torn up. This road's 23 feet long, during construction of these properties, there would not be enough room for construction vehicle parking, heavy equipment, and the need for fire trucks, buses, ambulances to drive down the street because the street's not wide enough to facilitate parking on both sides of the street with the truck and having a truck drive down the middle. There's no way it could happen. So that's all I'd like to say this evening, and thanks for having me.
Thanks to Mr. O.J. Johnson for his comments, and I thank all three delegates that came on in person to talk about it, because we've been doing these meetings via Zoom for quite some time now, and it's one of these things where we call it a public meeting, and we really invite people to come on as the public and speak at these meetings. So it's great that people have come forward to give their comments in person. I'm not sure what to do at this point in time. If there's a point of order I'd like to make, that maybe there's this whole term of what we would like to call intensification of the provincial policy statement 2020. If there's something from our senior planner, Andrea Hackler, I don't know if it would be clarification or what it would be, just to be able to understand the More Homes, More Choices Act, even from the province of Ontario, without delving into too much provincial legislation, to sort of think that a lot of the comments, and this is just me speaking as chair of this committee, that a lot of comments have pointing fingers at the city of Woodstock wanting this, and that the city of Woodstock wants this to increase our tax base and whatnot. That at the end of the day, it's also provincial legislation, which is I don't know if the word is encouragement, but as far as the planning side of things, maybe I don't know if we can get a word from Andrea Hackler, our senior planner, on that, and really the term intensification and the province of Ontario's directions to municipalities. Tough question, I know, Andrea, sorry.
So with respect to your comment, generally speaking, I mean, the application, as I indicated before, is in keeping with the provincial direction, in that there is direction to support intensification and to support infill in appropriate locations. And based on our review, we felt that it is an appropriate location. We do believe that it is a good form of infill and intensification. These are larger lots that can accommodate further intensification and infill and still meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Further to that, I mean, the proposals are also in keeping with the direction of the county official plan, and more importantly, the city of Woodstock's policies that are found in the plan that speak to intensification and infill and low density residential. And so that's why we supported the application.
Thanks for that clarification. Does the applicant, George Geerlings, have anything you'd want to add, maybe about the trees or anything at this point in time? But of course, there's no decisions made here tonight because we come back Thursday afternoon for our council meeting.
Like I was saying earlier, meeting with Rita, there is one very large maple that we are definitely saving there. It's probably the first one you see. It's huge. That one is definitely going to be saved. I think there's about 5 in the middle that we would have to remove, but there's also on the left side, I'm not sure what the address is on the left there, but there's some big pine trees that are basically right on top of the houses there, which I'm surprised they've never been taken down before, but they probably do more damage than good to the existing homes. Other than that, like, we're not trying to upset the neighborhood. We're trying to hopefully make it better. I know it's not what everybody likes to see in the neighborhood, but it is part of this property. And we had an opportunity, like I say, and we did not overpay anything. We paid asking price for the property, and it's not like we forced the owners to sell or went crazy on it's just, we are short of building lots in Woodstock. And that's part of our business, is building new homes. And when the opportunities arise, then we try to proceed with them. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Geerlings. Of course, no decision will be made on this matter or the other 2 matters on this agenda here tonight City Council does meet Thursday, August the 12th at 1:30. Connie, do you have a question of clarification? Connie Lauder, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. And for the delegations that have spoken, and I want to thank them for doing so. But I just want to mention that these applications come before council from planning, and we can turn them down if we feel that there's a real need to do so. But they can be appealed, and they're appealed to LPAT, and there's a hearing, and it's at great expense to the taxpayers too of Woodstock, because we do have to get a lawyer, and we also have to hire another planner. And so we just don't look at these and look and then just pass them through, or we do go through a lot in trying to do the best for the community. So I just wanted to let the people know that we certainly do take their concerns, and every one of us, I'm sure, will look at this deeply. But just to let them know, this can be appealed if we turn it down, and quite often when it goes to before LPAT, we're the losers, the city is. So I just want to let you know on that. So thank you.
Wonder if I can just make one more comment?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Mr. Gerlach. Yep.
One of the people mentioned, or the neighbor next door, and I'm not sure the address, about the trees. She said we had to plant 3 trees. We have to plant 3 for every one that we take down. So if we take down 5 trees, we have to replant 15 or pay cash in lieu. So it's not like we're just planting 3 more trees.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. And often even those trees might be, if they can't go on that lot somewhere, not to speak for the Parks Department, could go into a park or somewhere else. It's to create the green cover for the city of Woodstock. But the idea is to get them on the subject property. That's what, again, not wanting to speak for your final grading plan and whatnot, or final landscaping plan. Thanks a lot. That's it for item number 1 on our agenda here tonight. Took longer than most as we move towards item number 2 now, which is ZN 8-21-06. It's an application for zone change of note of interest. It's basically the same neighborhood. It's 43 Cronin Street, and the applicant is Teresa and Mark Farrell. If we can welcome back our senior planner this time to discuss 43 Cronin Street and the application there.
Thank you. So this application for zone change is to rezone the subject lands from R2, so residential zone 2, to a special residential zone 3 to facilitate an additional dwelling unit in an existing converted dwelling. So currently the zoning, the R2 zoning allows for 2 units in the dwelling. And the applicant actually has indicated on the application that there are in fact 3 units in the subject dwelling. And that 3rd unit was established some 20 years ago, and the applicant is simply requesting the zone change to recognize that 3rd unit and to legalize the unit. And so the subject property is approximately 501.6 square meters. It contains the existing dwelling, and it's surrounded by it's surrounded by a mix of low density residential uses as well as commercial uses to the west, and institutional use being a church to the immediate south. The subject lands are actually designated service commercial. However, the zoning is R2, which permits singles, semis, and converted dwellings with up to 2 units. And so that's why the applicant is proposing to rezone to an R3. So the current policies do not allow for residential uses in the service commercial as standalone uses in the service commercial designation. That being said, because this is a historical use and it is in keeping with the zoning that is on the property, there are provisions in the official plan that allow for extension and minor expansions of legal non-conforming uses. And so in this case, the policies would support, support a minor change to the existing use. And that is, so in our opinion, it would support that third unit being permitted on that property. And so, and again, we're just basically recognizing already an existing use that's on the site. And so then in addition to the rezone from the R2 to the R3, the applicant is also requesting to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 18 meters to 17.7 meters, as well as to reduce the minimum lot area from 540 square meters to 526 square meters. And so those provisions also would be required to go from a single to a converted dwelling with 2 units. And so basically, again, we're recognizing those deficiencies that already have allowed for these uses in the past to be on the site. Additionally, the building department has identified a yard deficiency of 0.6 meters where 1.2 meters is required, and a front lot depth deficiency of 0.3 meters where 6 meters is required. And so that again is an existing situation that we would be recognizing through the site specific zoning. Various agencies were circulated. Generally the agencies are supportive of the application. The building department indicated that they're supportive of the reduced or the reductions in lot area and lot frontage, as well as the reduced setbacks. Further to that, staff are satisfied that in these cases, mostly when we do zone changes for converted dwellings, one of the main things that we check is that the site can provide adequate parking. And in this case, staff are satisfied that the site is large enough to provide that third parking space. That being said, the building department, when the applicant applies for the building permit for that third unit, the building department will ensure that there is that third parking space on the site. Planning staff have reviewed the application and we're satisfied that it can be given favorable consideration. We feel that it's a form of intensification in an area that is mixed uses. It's on a variety of sizes of lots. There are no exterior renovations taking place, and so the site will, the exterior of the building will not be changed or affected at all. We don't feel that the third unit, recognizing the third unit, will negatively impact the neighborhood either, and it will maintain the existing character of the area as well. And as previously indicated, the big thing usually is that they can provide adequate parking. We're satisfied that the parking can be provided. We also feel that the site is large enough to provide adequate grading, drainage, landscaping, and I mean, again, the site's not changing. So we basically have done a site inspection and have confirmed that all those things are being provided already. So in light of that, we'd recommend that this application be given favorable consideration.
Thanks a lot for your report, Andrea, our senior planner from the County of Oxford Planning Office. Any questions, comments, or concerns from members of council? I guess I have a question that maybe would have to be clarified through our manager of building, Craig Wallace. I noticed obviously on there that the building permit would be required. Would a visit from the Woodstock Fire Department also be required for fire egress and also and then to confirm for firewall separations?
Councillor Schattenberg, to answer your question, no, that would be all covered through the building code and the building permit. Typically, the fire department would follow up for maintenance through the fire code of an existing use. So the building code would take care of the required fire separations and the exits.
All right, thanks a lot, Mr. Wallace. At this point in time, I would like to welcome our delegation for this event, and that would be Mark Farrell. If Mark Farrell could join us and give us your residential address as to where you live, Mark, and comments you'd like to make. You, of course, are one of the applicants for 43 Cronin Street, but we're not sure if you actually reside there, so clarify that and give us your comments.
Hello, everyone. Mark Farrell. I've had this property for over 20 years. It has been inspected by the fire department every 5 years. It's been inspected, and I've had the electrical inspection as well on all 3 units. It's been zoned as a duplex. And the 3rd unit we're talking about is a basement unit. And it's been fire coded, did all the work to make sure it's fire coded. So I have no problems about bringing, I have plans to bring the electrical inspection in from London to make sure that it has a 3rd meter. So the wiring as well as to get the fire inspection in there, sure that the drywall meets code. I believe it does because I've done the work. So is there
Any questions or comments from members of council for Mr. Farrell? Seeing none at this point in time, I want to invite anybody that wants to speak in favor of this application. I don't believe anyone's registered for that, but anyone can speak in favor of the registry of this application? Is there anybody registered to speak against this application? If anyone has been registered to speak against the application, I believe none. Okay, and as I mentioned before, Mr. Farrell, there will be no decision at tonight's meeting because the City Council meets on Thursday afternoon, August the 12th at 1:30 in the afternoon. And even the full agenda for the meeting will be online as well, let alone for these. And if you want to comment on Thursdays, by all means, let City Hall know by 2 p.m. tomorrow, at least the clerk's office, 2 p.m. tomorrow, if you'd like to still be a delegate to speak either in favor or against 43 Cronin Street and this application for a zone change. Thanks for joining us tonight, Mr. Farrell. The 3rd item on our agenda here tonight is OP 21-05-8 and ZN 8-21-05. It's an application for an official plan amendment and zone change, and the address of this time is 278 Hunter Street. The applicant is 125-02-488 Ontario, Inc. And we have the senior planner from the County of Oxford, Andrew Hackler, one more time to describe this application.
Thank you. So the final application for tonight is for an official plan amendment and a zone change for lands located at 278 Hunter Street. The applicant is proposing to redesignate the subject lands from low density residential to medium density residential, and then to rezone the subject lands from a special neighborhood special neighborhood institutional zone to a special residential zone 3. And then both the applications would facilitate the development of 16 townhouse dwelling units on the subject property. In addition to the zone change, the applicant has requested site-specific zoning, which will address deficiencies in lot area, rear yard depth, and private outdoor amenity space. So I'm just going to scroll here to the, oh, and then just for council's information, as council likely recalls, the former Oxford School, I probably have the name wrong, is is directly east of the subject lands, and the applicant redeveloped that site. They used the existing school and then added an addition. And then the applicant now has purchased the church, which is no longer in operation. I believe that they stopped meeting at the church in May of this year. And so the applicant is proposing to redevelop this site as well. And so I'll just move to the proposed site plan, and then just to give everyone a feel, this is what the applicant is proposing, these types of townhouses on the subject property. And so basically what the applicant is looking to do is for the purposes of the zoning bylaw, the lots or the units, the 8 units that front onto Oxford Street are considered street fronting towns because they have their own access and frontage directly onto an improved city street, so Oxford Street. And then the interior units are considered horizontally attached townhouses because it's just simply because they don't have their own frontage and street access. And so the street access will be through an internal and private lane off of Hunter Street. And that being said, the entire 16 units on the entire parcel will act as one single property, and the applicant is not looking to further separate these units or the parcel at this point in time. The overall size of the property is 0.77 acres, and the surrounding uses are a mix of low density residential uses to the north and south, the recently developed apartment building to the immediate east, and then there's also obviously the downtown is quite close to the subject lands, and then there's the badminton club to the east of the subject property too. So there's a real mix of residential densities as well as commercial uses and local amenities in the area. And so generally when sites are redeveloped and redesignated from low density to medium density, they're required to meet a number of criteria. Location is key. And so the subject property is located on a street that is considered a minor collector, and it has access to arterial streets. And so that means that a larger development is not forcing more traffic through a lower density, quieter residential neighborhood. It already is proposing traffic onto streets that are designed to handle larger amounts of traffic. So staff are supportive of the location. Additionally, the site is close to the downtowns, within walking distance to a number of parks and schools, as well as other public amenities and facilities, which is ideal for multi-residential development. It's a form of development that we see as intensification, and it can be accommodated in an area that has adequate servicing, and we also feel it's an efficient use of the subject property. Further to that, to go back to the traffic, staff were satisfied that a traffic impact study was not required as there's only 16 units being proposed. With respect to traffic, additionally, usually there's that consideration for parking. The applicant is providing 2 parking spaces per unit. As council can see, there's a garage per unit as well as a parking space in front of each unit. So they are able to provide the required amount of parking. The building department indicated too, just for council's information, that visitor parking is not required with this number of units and this form of development. And so the applicant's meeting the parking requirements. As I indicated before, the applicant is requesting relief from a number of the zoning provisions in the R3 zone. So they're looking to reduce the minimum lot area, the rear yard depth, and the private outdoor amenity space for the horizontally attached units. So that's for these units. Generally speaking, staff are satisfied that these requests are fairly minor. We still feel that the site is adequately sized to provide the appropriate amount of parking, adequate setbacks. There's adequate space also for landscaping. There is a reduced amount of private amenity space for the horizontally attached units, but staff are satisfied that there is an amount of amenity space that's being proposed in addition to a number of public parks in the area that are within close walking distance. So any of the residents that felt the need to, they could easily access any of the city's parks in the area. Additionally, the proposed 16 units fall within the medium residential density requirements, in that it supports up to 30 units per acre, and the applicant's proposing approximately 21 units per acre. So it's well within that range for the medium density designation. Further to that, as council will be aware, these types of proposals or these types of developments go through the site plan approval process, where we take a look at grading, drainage, servicing, parking, landscaping. There will be a requirement for a landscape plan where the Parks Department can ask for any sort of compensation for trees that are removed, and additionally ask for any additional landscaping that may be required on the site. Site plan will also address snow storage and garbage storage and removal. So in light of that, it's our opinion that the subject development is appropriate for the subject property and should be given favorable consideration.
Thanks for your report, Andrea, and the work you've done on this one. And any comments from members of council? I see Councillor Connie Lauder's got her hand up. Go ahead, Connie.
Thank you. This is an email, and I'm just going to read it, that came in. It's regarding parking, and that was one of the things, and Andrea has spoken to that. But if you like, I would read this, that it just came in since we started our meeting, and it's from Tim Moeller. And I have a concern regarding parking. The apartments at Hunter and Delator obviously do not have enough parking because people park on the street legally and illegally. It causes blind spots at the stop signs and dangerous situations. I don't want the same problem at this new building, which is next door. Double the people parking on the street. Thank you. So I just wanted to let you know that this has come in. I don't know whether the rest of the councillors got it. And I don't know if Andrea wants to speak to it. I know she's already talked about the parking. So I just thank you.
Any other comments or questions from members of council? And I know before Connie Lauder had mentioned, this is my, I guess as chair, my time to mention something that Connie talked about previously, about the fact that getting cars into smaller garages nowadays seems to be certainly a concern, and it's very difficult to ascertain whether or not the car in the garage and the car in front of the garage is two parking spots because of that. But my Craig wants to answer that. Go ahead, Craig, if you did clarify on that.
Councillor Schattenberg, the parking in the garages, the concern is coming up a lot. So I just wanted to state that parking space in the garage meets the requirement size of an external parking space. So there's no reason why a vehicle can't park in the garage because it's the same space as an external parking space. I just wanted to make that clear.
So I guess I was still on mute. The one comment I wanted to confirm from our senior planners whether or not these condos will eventually be up for individual sale, but I know that we have our applicant with us, so we'll be able to ask him as well. So any other comments or questions for our senior planner or for Craig Wallace from the building department? And I will invite now Frank Tang in, who's the applicant on this, and maybe he can address that question that I discussed about individual sale of condominiums, because these are townhouses, not an apartment building. And any other questions he may want to answer or comments he'd like to make. Please, Mr. Tang, to give us your residential address as well, or at least your office address where you do business from.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So thanks for inviting me to the meeting. To answer your question, Mark, and this will be actually condominium corporation who will be individually sell each unit. But this will not be a freehold townhouses. So this will be under one condominium corporation in this scenario. And the site itself, used to be Oxford Baptist Church. Now has been relocated, and we have acquired the property. Try to redevelop this underutilized land into to provide more housing supply to the city. So I believe the setup we have on the property, like on this proposal, is going to comply with all the surrounding neighborhood area. And we have, as you might know, the property next door was developed by us, and the parking spots were provided to that building. It's a different scenario, but that we haven't seen a lot of impact on a lot of local traffic situation. In my opinion, we don't see creating much more negative impact on the local traffic along Oxford and Hunter Street. So in our opinion, we think this should be adequate by providing this 8 street fronting townhouses, which is to Oxford Street. So they're gonna plus Oxford Street is a one-way drive, so they're gonna drive out and then make a left, and then they're heading to Dundas Street and Mill Street. So in my opinion, I don't think it's having a lot of negative impact on the traffic.
Thanks, Mr. Tang. I guess just for clarification, are you the actual builder therefore, or are you going to be the owner and developer, or are you just a consultant for the applicant?
My status here, yeah, I am a developer and a builder at the same time for this project.
Any other comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, of course, the mention is the fact that if you want to be a delegate still for Thursday afternoon's meeting, to contact City Clerk by 2 p.m. Tomorrow, and any of the delegations or applicants can certainly come back to City Council on Thursday, or anyone who's made a comment here. But by all means, even if you didn't participate in tonight's public meeting and you've decided you want to make some sort of a public opinion on one of the delegations or one of the 3 items on our agenda tonight, by all means contact City Council or City Clerk by 2 p.m. Tomorrow. I thank Mr. Tank for participating. As we mentioned previously, no decisions are made at tonight's meeting because City Council meets on Thursday, August the 12th at 1:30, and that's when the items will be on the agenda. So I thank members of council and planning department, and also Craig Wallace and the building department for participating tonight, and of course our city deputy clerk Alicia Dijak for hosting the meeting here tonight, and our IT department for being on board too. Can I have a adjournment, please? Adjourned by Jerry Accioni, seconded by Connie Lauder. We shall adjourn this meeting then. Thanks for participating, and as I mentioned before,